This is going to be a very controversial video, I feel like. I feel like this might be a very controversial video. I don't know. I don't be on the internet like that. Like I don't go on the parts of the internet where people talk about this shit. I barely understand who half of the people involved are. So forgive me, this is either going to be a very lukewarm take that you've heard a million times that I just don't know is a common take, or this is going to be absolutely insane depending on I don't know how people in general are reacting to this, but that's a funny phrase because this is a video about React content. Um, now I perhaps more specifically, this is kind of a video about a man by the name of Jack's Films. I used to watch Jack's Films when I was a kid, but his videos kind of fell off. He kind of stayed in like 2013 and never grew up, which I think is it's kind of funny. He's also a very Reddit human being, which is fine. You know, you gotta have some Redditors from time to time. They can't help it. Um, but you know, recently, as far as I can tell, Jax Films has been beefing with some sort of VTuber. Now, look, I don't really watch any VTubers. I may be a big anime guy, but I'm a big anime guy. Like I'm not just because you're into anime doesn't necessarily mean you're into VTubers. I don't really watch any streamers, and I don't really watch any VTubers either. So I don't really have a horse in this race. You know, I don't really particularly care about either side. But I do have like some sort of philosophical framework about um, what stuff on the internet is. And as far as I understand, Jax Films has taken it upon himself over the past while to be a crusader against so-called content thieves or freebooters or React Andes or whatever you want to call them, people who post React videos. Um, Now, React channels have been a thing for a long time on YouTube, and they continue to be a thing because it's a type of content that people like to watch. Um, However, YouTubers obviously have something against this because in their minds, if you're reacting to someone's video and uploading it, you are stealing their content, which I think is a really strange way to put it because it's just very obviously not true. Um, like to steal something is bad because you deprive something of someone that you deprive someone of something that they had. If I steal your bike, you don't have a bike anymore, and that sucks. If I steal, your YouTube video, I haven't actually stolen it. I've just copied it, right? Like nothing about it. There's no level by which you no longer have access to that digital file. It's the same for all digital um, goods, right? It's the same reason, if piracy was really theft, you could download a game a million times and bankrupt a studio, right? But that's not how files work, right? You're not stealing anything from them. You're just copying something. So the video is not what's being stolen, and everyone knows this. When you say this to them, they'll be like, "That's just semantics, right?" Because what's actually being stolen is the audience, which is really funny because it is very explicitly everything except the content that's being stolen. The content is not being stolen, the content is being copied. The audience, all of the meta aspects around the content are what's being stolen. So calling them content thieves is like hilariously inaccurate. It's the one thing they're not stealing. um, so the sort of the argument is, I suppose, that the internet is people's livelihoods, and by re-uploading someone's video with a reaction in the corner or whatever, this is somehow bad because you're sort of depriving them of theoretical views. Of course, this makes the same, you know, flawed assumption that anti-piracy arguments make, which is the idea that the people who watch Sniper Wolf react to someone's video would otherwise have seen the original video, which is not true, right? Like, there are lots of people. For example, XQC, big time reactor. I'm not a big XQC fan, especially not these days. I think he massively fell off. But I had a phase where I watched a little bit of XQC. I think we all had that kind of phase. He had sort of a peak, and I was there for that peak, and I enjoyed some of his videos. And he would do some React Andy content, and I would watch him. I would watch him react to stuff, right? And some of that stuff, like Daily Dose of Internet, I was just like, oh, this is cool. And I subscribed to the Daily Dose of Internet channel and didn't give a fuck about XQC. But a lot of the stuff he reacted to was videos I would never have watched if it wasn't for XQC reacting to them. Um, you know, like it's a completely flawed argument to just assume that one person is stealing views from another person. It's not the case, especially given the fact that I'm someone who watches some React content. For example, there's a YouTuber called Repster who makes videos about Counter Strike surfing. And I am a big fan of Counter Strike surfing, so I watch Repster's videos. There's another popular Counter Strike streamer called Onepixel, and from time to time, well, actually, fairly commonly, Onepixel will post React content, and he's reacted to Repster's videos a few times. But what I'll do is I'll watch the Repster video, and then if I see that One has reacted to it, I'll watch One react to it because I want to know what he has to say, right? Normally, it's kind of silly stuff because he's kind of a memeable figure, but that's entertaining for me. That's what React content is all about. It's not, clearly something is being added to the videos if I'm gonna rewatch the video just to see how this other guy that I'm interested in is gonna what their opinion is gonna be. So like the concept of React content is not like somehow insane or like could only possibly exist for some sort of malicious goal. Like it very obviously has value as to maybe some people will be think this is too extreme, but art, beyond just as an economic sort of hustle. Uh, Now, I'm on the side of the majority here when I say that most React content is not very good, right? And when I say it's not very good, we have to make a distinction here because the English language is not super precise. When I say it's not very good, good can mean both containing aesthetic qualities which I appreciate, and it can also mean morally virtuous, right? The words good and bad have a double meaning, where on the one hand they can describe some sort of uh, you know non-moral, purely descriptive, or um, what would be the word? Evaluative, perhaps, uh, features, whereas on the other hand, they can also refer to moral qualities, um, which I think is a shame that we have the same words for both of those things because they're actually completely different concepts, right? Something can be ugly but morally good, and something can be beautiful but morally reprehensible. Um, and I'm sure that Nietzsche would probably have something to say about that. But the fact that we use the same language for these things, and the fact that I think that these concepts are kind of linked in our culture, is what leads to some strange things, whereby someone like Jack's Films uses this subtle, switcheroo, whereby he'll watch a Sniper Wolf video, and everyone who's watching the video can agree, or at least, excuse me, the majority of people can agree that it's not particularly good as a video. It doesn't have a particularly high entertainment value. It's not, so it on a series of artistic criteria, it's not, it doesn't have much merit, right? So he can point that out, and then using this fallacy whereby stealing content is equivalent to theft of a real object, he can do a little bait and switch whereby now the aesthetic failures become moral failures. And not to get too crazy, but that is also kind of the basis of fascism. Like the basis of fascism is that like everything ugly is evil and everything beautiful is good. But let's back up the fuck up from that a little bit because maybe we're taking it too far there. Maybe we're taking it too far. But it's not so it's a common trick, and it's something that I don't like, and I don't think you should like either. I think it's a bit sneaky. It's a bit conniving, right? And obviously Jags Films has a very good reason, materialist economic reason to do this, because he's a YouTuber and he's making money off of this. And so anyone who is like even potentially stealing someone's audience is, affecting his bottom line, which is all he really cares about. Um, and that's not to say that like Jack's films might be some sort of morally reprehensible, greedy guy. No, he just exists within capitalism, But uh, there's an idea on the internet that piracy is generally okay. Like most people, especially for like video games and movies, have accepted the idea that and software as well, that the piracy of digital goods is like fine, right? And I think people can justify it to themselves because they see that these are things made by big companies, right? And a big company is kind of a faceless thing. It doesn't really matter if, even if worst case scenario were true and that everyone who pirates a video game would otherwise have spent $60 or however much on that video game, we don't really care because it's just some corporation somewhere, right? Um, Whereas if it's in a sort of individual business, like small business where I'm falling over, small business where we seem to have a parasocial relationship with the actual person who's the owner of that business, suddenly, the same standards that we apply to software no longer apply, which is strange because the structure is exactly the same. It's still a business. It doesn't really matter the size of the business. I don't know when we decided that. That's not a thing. um, so Jack's Films has a financial incentive to argue against so-called freebooting. I prefer freebooting as a term than content theft because it's not theft, and the thing being stolen isn't even content if it were theft. It's the audience, theoretically. So let's call it freebooting. Um, he has obviously a strong financial incentive to disavow freebooting, and not only that, but to rile up an idea in the general populace, to propagandize effectively that this is something that is not just aesthetically bad, because I agree that it's aesthetically bad. Don't get me wrong, okay? Just to be very clear here, I don't watch these kinds of videos. It was tough for me to even think of an example of the only pixel example that I just gave because I don't watch any React content. So it's like that's the only thing I've ever really watched like these days. But anyway, like it is aesthetically bad, and I will give you that. But the bait and switch where you swap out aesthetically wrong for morally wrong. I don't know. It's kind of that propaganda directly benefits Jack's films, and it directly benefits his buddies, right? Because it supports their business model. But obviously, if your argument is not that the content is being stolen, because we all can agree the content is not what's being stolen, it's the audience and the views that are being stolen. Why does that matter? Because like that's kind of strange, right? You're basically saying someone is competing with me in the market and I don't like it. Like someone is offering an alternative to my product, which is out competing the original. They and that's mean, and perhaps it is mean. Um, but like why? What I'm saying here is what are they actually saying? They're saying this guy's stealing business from me, right? They're infringing copyright law, and the purpose of copyright law is to stop people from stealing business from me, right? That's the problem. And so you, as the audience member, are really a customer. You're a number. You're a view. You're an ad watch to give Jack's Films money. That's why it's bad, right? Just stay with me. I know this sounds very basic, but um, just to be very clear, the argument is that someone like Sniper Wolf is morally objectionable because her business model relies on taking business from other possible creators. And what that means is directing viewers from one place to another place so that the original person can't make money off of them, even though the video itself is still getting seen just on someone else's channel. So when's Jack's Films gonna come out and say that using ad block is equivalent to freebooting? When's he gonna say that? Because the argument is exactly the same. You're getting the video for free without having to pay anyone. He doesn't actually care about like attribution because attribution is meaningless, right? It doesn't have any material, blah blah blah. It's not money. It's not economic. He's obviously, he might say he cares about attribution, but if you asked him why he cared about attribution, would it just be because it's generally speaking morally good to attribute things to people, or would it be, which I think is a flimsy answer that doesn't really, even if he said that, it's kind of meaningless. Um, you know, that's just like, okay, that's just your personal opinion, basically. Or would he say because of some economic reason? Because, when you attribute your content correctly, people can go over there and give that person money and they can make it into a living. I assume he would say the second because it's a much better argument. Um, but there you have it. Simply speaking, you know, okay, I go over to some random person's channel and I watch their videos with ad block, and you're not convincing me to turn ad block off, right? Because ads are intrusive and full of malware and scams. So that's not happening. And you're not going to tell me it's bad because when I render a web page, that's happening on my machine and I'm in charge of how web pages render because it's my computer and I own my computer, right? That's how computers work. So you can't forcibly download something onto my computer. That is malware. Um, Therefore, I'm gonna block ads. Fuck you. I don't care if I was a malware developer and someone got mad at me and someone said like, well, I don't want to download your malware, I'm going to install Windows Defender or whatever the fuck, right? uh, you know would I be justified in getting mad and saying, no, 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 I have to install malware on your computer, it's how I make my living? Well, then fuck you, buddy. You shouldn't be making your living like that, right? Like, that's not good. You shouldn't be doing that. That's not a job that should exist. I basically think the same thing, right? If your job relies on adware, spyware, or malware, it's probably a shitty job it's a shitty business model, right? It's not making the world a better place. And the thing about Jack's films, this is the ultimate irony, right? I could point out how everyone he's attacked has been a woman, and that's like kind of strange, right? But let's just back up from that a second. Um, he does seem to have a weird thing against attractive young women. I don't know what that's about. He seems to really target that. I don't know. It's a bit bizarre. But I'm not going to psychoanalyze or anything. Uh, what is Jack's films like actual content? Is he's a React YouTuber as well? That's what's especially funny, right? Is that Jack's films is saying all of this and taking some sort of moral high ground, even though his channel has just been React content for years. He was the first person to figure out that the best way to do YouTube is to just get your audience to generate free content for you. And all he does is react to his own comment section. It's all he's done for ages. He got famous by reading out in song form like spelling mistakes, right, on the internet. He's just reacting with extra steps. He's not actually like, what is the original content there? He's not making fucking. He made some sketches, and those are definitely constitute original content. But the majority of his channel is fucking yesterday I asked you or some bullshit. Or at least it was. I don't know. I haven't watched him in years. But that was for a long time. All he did was he'd ask a question to his audience, and then the next video. He doesn't add anything. He just reads the comments out and laughs sometimes. Like, that's it. I don't know how he managed to act as if he has some sort of moral high ground here. Like, his videos are shit. His videos are equal. They're basically the same thing because he's also just reacting to other people's content and not paying them, right? Uh, but there's not an expectation that you should get paid for a YouTube comment. No one thinks YouTube comments are valuable enough that you should get paid for them, right? Like, it would be insane. But no, I leave a funny comment on a YouTube video because I want to leave a funny comment on a YouTube video because that's something I enjoy, right? Because it provides value to the world and to me just on its own. Like, maybe that's how the internet should be. This is the really hot take part of the video. Maybe you're not owed a fucking living from the internet. Maybe making videos where you read out people's comments on YouTube and then send your entire fan base to harass some random person who's doing the same thing with extra steps, or with fewer steps, I guess. Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe that shouldn't. And it's all paid for by intrusive ads on a website owned by, an evil mega corporation. Maybe you don't deserve that money, buddy. Like, maybe actually this is a massive fucking cope whereby you know all of this, you understand all of this, but you can't allow yourself to believe it because it would go against your principles to understand that you are equally complicit in the same fucked up system. So you draw some sort of hard line where what you're doing is arbitrarily okay, and you have a bingo card with a bunch of arbitrary rules, right? That you just made up. You just made up these rules, but because you're an authoritative voice, everyone just believes you, right? But you just made up these rules. So you draw a hard line whereby you're on the right side of the line. Everything you do is okay. Everything this other person does, evil, completely wrong. Fucking, it's insane. It's crazy that you can get away with shit like that, and people don't even seem to care. It's such a weird fucking thing to obsess over, and that's really what Jax Films does. Is he like obsesses over these people? I didn't fucking know who SSS Sniper Wolf was. I don't know who this VTuber is that he's beefing with. I don't know who any of these people are that he's starting drama with. He is just weirdly obsessed with like targeting young women over random moral rules he's made up so that he doesn't have to accept that his business is not particularly ethical either. And I'm not here to moralize and say like some bullshit about how like ethical business practices. There are no ethical business practices. I'm a fucking communist, right? Like everyone has to accept that. That's already a given, is that the structure is fucked up. But there's no point in making little tiny, oh, well, I'm on this side of the line, so I'm okay, but you're on they're completely unacceptable. Meanwhile, there are like actual problems in the world. Meanwhile, there are fucking like actual concerns over capitalism, which aren't boo-hoo, I can't live in a fucking mansion because people are watching my videos with ad block. You know, uh, like, no, the real problems with capitalism are like, hey, the website that I operate is actually collecting massive amounts of user data, which it has repeatedly, shared with the United States government, in collaboration as a part of a global spying campaign, right? Like that's an actual problem with the system. Or, for example, there were the clothes that I wear were probably made by some, fucking person in a sweatshop who was getting paid nothing. That's a problem. I don't know, man. I don't know, man. The whole business model of YouTube relies on corporate surveillance and intrusive advertising, even the products it's advertising being scams because no one can sell anything anymore because the like it's not complicated. It's not complicated. The whole thing's fucked. You are not a moral human. As a YouTuber, you don't get to ever be on the moral high ground because you have a sketchy business model. You're shilling shirts to like 14-year-olds. That's your business model, really. You're already making a bunch of money on ad revenue, even though you pretend to cry about demonetization as if any of you actually are affected. I see your houses. You post videos from inside your huge fucking houses. What are you talking about? Oh, boo-hoo, the video got demonetized. Motherfucker, you're a millionaire, okay? And then you shill like shirts and like fucking BetterHelp or whatever the fuck, companies sponsor your videos because ads before the videos weren't enough. Now you need ads inside the videos. It's just your entire existence is only allowed. You don't understand who you are, Jax Films, okay? You are not better than anyone. You are not an artist. Your entire existence is allowed because you hawk products for capitalists. That's your job. Your job is not to make some sort of moral statement about what content on the internet should or shouldn't be, right? And draw arbitrary lines in the sand. Your job is to make a thumbnail attractive enough that teenagers click it so that you can advertise products to them. That is your job, okay? Don't fucking sit here and pretend like you're some paragon of virtue. You are a fucking advertising billboard.